ladies and gentlemen, if we could get settled in to begin. I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Hopefully the meeting will be brief and we can get back to the warmth of our homes and prepare for the storm coming tomorrow. I'm Fran Wendelboe, the chair of the Budget Committee, and at this time I'd like to ask everybody to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated, and at this time I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the exits. There are 2 exits in the rear up on the top steps. There's 2 here on the side, and then there's 2 here at each end of these tables. I'm going to start by having the Budget Committee members, starting at the end with Simon, to introduce themselves, please.
Simon Barnett from Denver.
Rich Bergy from Hebron.
Sharon Nelson, Groton.
Harold Riley from Alexandria.
John Bobel, Bridgewater.
And I'm Fran Wendelboe from New Hampton. We also have Bill Joseph from Bristol, who was unable to be with us tonight because of some surgery he had scheduled. And now if we'll start down there with the school board members.
I'm Lou Laredo from Groton. John Johnson from Denver. Vincent Paul Migliori from Bridgewater. Lloyd Belvin from Bristol.
Sue Cheney from Alexandria.
Paul Reinhardt from Acton.
Mary Campbell from Hebron.
And our SAU administrators, if they would introduce themselves, please.
Dan Rossner, Business Administrator.
Rory Ross, Superintendent.
Thank you. And just for the record, Mr. Reinhardt is also the school board's representative on the budget committees. And now Mary Campbell, the chairman of the school board, will talk a little bit about the warrant articles.
Thank you very much, Fran, for opening the meeting, and thank you as well for being here tonight. And I agree with you. We hope that our business will be done before any of the bad weather comes in, so everyone can travel safely. I would respectfully ask the members of the school board, if you wish to speak during the meeting anytime, if you would please use the microphone, which is not very far from your table. The booklet that was available for you when you walked in tonight. On page 1, the warrant starts. And on page 3, there are brief explanations of each article. The first article is to elect your representatives, both for the school board and for the budget committee, as well as to vote for the warrant that is finalized at the first deliberative session, February 4th. That is a Saturday morning, and it will be in this building at 10 a.m. So you can see on the draft warrant article the times and place in your town where the voting will take place, the second Tuesday in March, the 13th. And I think there was just a slide about the positions that will be open on your ballot. They are 3-year terms for both the school board and the school budget committee, Danbury, Hebron, and Groton, as well as a moderator, which is a 1-year term. People who are interested in running for those positions would file with their town clerk. Anyone interested in running for the moderator position would file with the SAU office. Article 2 in the warrant is an expendable trust fund for building maintenance. This is an article that we've had for several years since Colonel Finkel was the Bridgewater representative. If at the end of this year there are funds left over in our budget, that becomes a fund balance. Those funds are returned to the towns. This article, if it is approved, would allow us, if there are funds available at the end of the year, to take $60,000 and put it in a maintenance trust fund. This is very similar to the capital reserve funds that many of your towns have. Currently, our maintenance trust fund does not have any funds in it. The funds that would be in that maintenance trust fund can only be spent at a public meeting where the item would be on the agenda and discussed by the school board, and they would be the people to vote to say, yes, we need to take the money out of the maintenance trust fund, or no, we are not going to take the money out. We have used it many years ago to repair the gym floor in the middle school. And I think most recently we used it for the many life safety issues we needed to address at Bristol Elementary School. So just as the towns have their own capital reserve fund, if we had funds in this maintenance trust fund, it would help us for those types of emergencies or large projects that you could not plan on when you were building a budget. Are there any questions about this article? The money is not in the current proposed budget. It is not in the proposed default budget. This would only occur if we ended the year with funds that were not spent, and if you gave us permission to transfer $60,000 into it. Thank you. The next 4 articles are petitioned articles. And as I mentioned Monday night at the school board meeting, I told Mr. Golden from Danbury, I hoped that people who signed the petition would be present tonight to speak about each article. I will tell you that based on Article 3 about a tax cap, the school board is required to hold a public hearing in each of the 7 towns. We have already set that schedule, and we would also be addressing that night Article 6, which just arrived after the school board meeting. So the schedule of public hearings that will take place will be early February. It will be after the first deliberative session on February 4th, but they need to be all done by the end of February before you vote in March. So we will be coming to each town to have a public hearing, and for those people who were petitioners on those 2 articles, I would encourage you to come to those hearings so that we can learn more about your petition and your ideas behind it. I'm certainly not going to read any of these articles to you because you can all see them on page 1 and 2 with a brief explanation on page 3. Mr. Corrett, did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Would you use the mic, please? Anyone that speaks to help the clerk and all of us,
My only question is,
if you would just use the mic, state your name and state your town, please.
George Corrett, Bristol. I find there are no budgets, and it's very difficult to follow with no more copies of the budget.
We've made some more copies. We've made some more copies, so Ann, is Ann back yet? Ann is making more copies, and I apologize for
One
that.
is sufficient.
We can never know how many people are coming, but we are very encouraged by the numbers that are here tonight. And we didn't want to make too many and waste the paper, and we hope that we were guessing to make enough. So in the meantime, if more copies are being made, if you could just share with a neighbor or someone, we would appreciate that. If there is anyone present in the audience who was a signer on Article 3, the tax cap, if you would like to speak, please come to one of the microphones and state your name and your town, please.
Barbara Greenwood, Bristol.
Thank you.
And this article is in response to the level of increase at the meetings that anyone can stand up. Prior to this, it was 10%. And we would like to hold it down to 2% after the Budget Committee does all their work, and then to go to a meeting and then have someone stand up and increase it to 10%. We'd like to be able to hopefully keep it down to 2%. Thank you.
Thank you.
I question
Yeah, the way
interpretation of
the way-
that.
The way it's
You think it's worded?
Well, the way it's worded is
I just want people to read that article carefully, because the way it's worded, it could be construed that you're limiting what the governing body or budget committee can bring to the meeting to 2%, but that does not mean that it couldn't still be 10% from the floor.
Mr. Rozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Your name and town, please?
My name is Archie Ozier, and I live up the road in Bristol, the Gold Coast. And that's enough introduction and background as compared to the other night. Now, I want people to look at page 13, and this pertains to how much the increase could be if the article were to pass. Page 13. Please note the article says that the amount raised locally in the previous year. So if this article passes next year, the amount of dollar increase would be 2% of the $11,699. Or I guess that'd be about $220,000. Now, however, if you read further in RSA 32.5 C and B, there are 3 or 4 sections of that. That's not cast in cement. Just like you can override limitations that the Budget Committee sets, this can be overridden by the legislative body. So if the legislative body were to say, well, no, we don't want to do it, we want to raise it more than the 2%, all of us could do that.
Thank you. If there's no one else to speak about Article 3, Article 4 is a feasibility study. Putting addition, as I just heard this on Monday night, putting an addition for junior high, grades 7 and 8 on this building, moving the, adding on, I think, to some of the elementary schools to make them K-6 if they needed another room, that would be determined. Moving Bristol Elementary School and the SAU office into the current middle school. That's just a brief synopsis of what I understand the article to be. Is there any petitioner here who would like to speak briefly about the article? If not, if you turn your page, Article 5 is another petitioned article. And this is to conduct a feasibility study about creating local districts for K-8 with then a separate district for 9-12. Are there any members of the petition who would like to speak to this? Again, I will urge you to attend any of the public hearings, and they will be widely posted, that we will be having in February. Article 6 is also a petitioned article. I believe it came in, excuse me, yesterday after the school board had a meeting on Monday night. And as you know, we operate under SB2, the official ballot. The vote to become a SB2 happened many years ago. It took 2 or 3 years before it was passed by the sufficient majority. And then a couple of years after that, we had a similar petition or article to Article 6 to rescind SB2 and go back to the old-fashioned school district meetings. we've not seen such an article again, so as I understand, that's what Article 6 is about. Is there a member of the petition who would like to speak?
Yes, my name is John Thuen. I'm from Bristol. I'm the one that originated the petition.
Thank you.
And the intent, what's written here is exactly what was in the petition. The intent of the petition, as I discussed tonight with Marie, is that the proper question from the RSA would be the actual wording on the ballot. The wording is in there. I can't pick it out right here real quick. It says, shall we rescind the provisions of, I'm losing a line here, of RSA 4013, known as SP2, as adopted by the Newfound Area School District on March 21st. So the official ballot will no longer be used for voting on all questions, but only for the election of officers and certain other questions for which the official ballot is required by state law. And that's, I think, what you'll see here when we get done with the article. That is the question as defined in the RSA. My intent in bringing the petition forth is that I very much dislike our current indirect enaction of the budget, because it seems like we get a choice of big or bigger. What I would like to do is get back to the town meeting form of government so that we have the opportunity to directly enact the budget at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. Holleran is passing out additional copies of the packet. If you didn't get one, would you please raise your hand high enough so she could easily see you? Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Holleran, and to whomever made the extra copies. So do I understand that the wording of Article 6 will change?
It will be edited down to just that.
It will be edited down, the superintendent says,
To what's in quotations.
to what is in quotations.
Right.
Okay, that will make it easier, I think, in March when someone is looking at their ballot and perhaps has not come to either meeting, that they'll understand.
Right. The intent is to have the wording that the RSA requires.
Okay.
Not to have all the rest of it there.
Right. Fine. Thank you. Is there any comments people would like to make about this petitioned article? Please use the mic so we can all hear you.
Amin Kala from Bristol. Can Mr. Thune please elaborate on this? Because like foreign language, could he translate it a little bit?
When he said the town meeting form of government, most of the towns, but not New Hampton, so I believe you live in Bristol, when it's town meeting night, you go to your town meeting, or anyone who is a registered voter in Bristol goes to the Bristol town meeting, and you go through the whole warrant. You have a moderator, and you go through the whole warrant, and you add or subtract, or you agree or disagree, but then you vote on that warrant article after the discussion before you go to the next warrant article. So if you have some warrant articles that are cost items, you can keep track of how much that you might be increasing your budget, for example. And then usually the last item on any town's warrant is the budget for the new year. So we did that from when I've been involved with the school district up until this date of 1997. We always had a school district meeting, which is just like the town meeting, except the school district meeting is for all 7 towns. So people from all 7 towns would come. It used to be the gym in the middle school when it was the high school, then it's been the gym in this building. And we would go through article by article, but you vote at the end of each article. You do not wait until the March ballot to vote.
What about the budget committee as
It's
exists?
the same thing. The last article would be the budget. It's just that you make a decision that night or afternoon or morning that you have the school district meeting, so that you know when you leave the meeting what that result is of your actions.
So it will be collectively for all the
And there would be
towns?
no default budget.
Right, but it will be collectively for all the towns?
Yes.
And every resident of every town
Yes.
has a vote?
Yes, the supervisors of the checklist are at the meeting, just like they are at your town meeting, just like they will be here for first deliberative session. And so if there are any paper ballots that are asked for, the supervisors of the checklist are there. The moderator has always been very good at any of our meetings to ask people who are not registered voters in the district to sit in a separate section. And I think our moderator is very fair to call on pro and con for each item, and he would still continue to do that, but at the finish of the dialogue on that particular item, then the vote would be taken. It's usually first a voice vote. If the moderator cannot decide the voice vote, then he'll ask for a show of hands, and if he still feels he needs something more to determine, but it's decided right then. Then you go to the next warrant article.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Sharon?
Thank you. Sharon Nelson, Groton. I believe that two advantages to the SB2 were to protect people who were easily intimidated by voting. I'm not intimidated. I don't mind putting my hand up for yes or no, but there are people who get very nervous about having to do that, and SB2 allowed them to vote in the privacy of the voting booth. And I thought that that was a great advantage, and now we're thinking of taking that away. And I've already forgotten the second one. But anyway, that's important to me, to provide people privacy when they vote. Oh, the other advantage was between the deliberative session in February and the actual voting on a ballot in March, there's a lot of time to cogitate and to talk to other people and find out differing views before you actually vote. And I think that SB2 should be kept, I think.
Before the chair of the budget committee. Yes? You go to the mic, please.
I'm Lou Lieto from Groton, speaking as an individual from Groton. There are some advantages, and I'm not coming out strongly in favor nor opposed, but there are some advantages to a traditional decision-making body. For one thing, the town of Groton has its deliberative session a week before, a week different than the voting on specific printed ballot articles. And so, in addition to that, there are numerous venues for publishing the information so that people can, in fact, have time to discuss it. But the most important issue that I think needs to be thought about is consider for a moment if you're running a business. We've been often reminded that this school is, in some respects, a business. If you're running a small business and you have an accountant, and the accountant gets to make all of the financial decisions independent of the business issues, then likely some of those decisions will be not healthy for the business issues. And if the person who's running the business doesn't pay attention to the finances, then likely the business is going to suffer. My point is that the practice of separating the financial decision-making from the evaluation of programs and the critique and the refinement and endorsement or getting rid of programs that aren't working is, to me, as an individual, is inseparable. Those who are responsible for the quality of the output have to have input and control over the financial elements of the output. That's a personal point of view. Thanks.
Thank you. Before the chair of the budget committee starts to the budget preparation, presentation, I just would like to state that at the conclusion of the hearing, the school board is going to reconvene the meeting that it had on Monday night for one item of business that was not concluded that night. At the same time, the Budget Committee will convene and talk about what they've heard tonight and come up with their final budget number. That will go to the first deliberative session. Again, that is Saturday, February 4th at 10 a.m. at this school. And if we do have snow or ice that day, the snow date is the following Saturday, same time, same place. But there will be additional public notices in all of the newspapers, and we are preparing a brief article to state the warrant articles and a brief statement and reminding you of the first deliberative session. That will be mailed, bulk mailing, before first deliberative, right?
Next week.
It will be mailed next week, so it will be before first deliberative session. And again, I thank you for your attendance, and I'm anxious to listen to all of you tonight. Thank you.
Mary? What were those dates again? What was that, snow date?
The 11th.
Snow date is February 11th. It's the following Saturday. And we had notified all of the towns last year when we made these dates, and New Hampton is another town that's SB2. So we've tried not to conflict with any towns, but people had asked us for the last couple of years, please don't do it on a work night, don't do it on a Friday night. Can we go back to Saturday? So we said that we all agreed as a board we would try that.
Well, Alexandria is also SB2. As Danbury, too, I think.
Is Danbury now too?
And I did speak,
But,
I did speak with them in advance and told them that we would need to use that as a snow date, and that's why we put it in the morning, so they know that.
All right, I was just, I was told that at
Oh, excuse me,
6
so
o'clock-
Danbury, Alexandria, and New Hampton are also SB2.
So Alexandria's meeting will be at 6 o'clock. Ours starts at 10 in the morning to try to accommodate if there is a snow day.
Thanks, son. I know the state of New Hampshire really needs the snow to get the out-of-staters up here and for all the snowmobilers to enjoy our beautiful country, but think sun for February 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Article 7 is the operating budget, and I believe you all have copies that were given to you. The current figures that are being discussed this evening is $21,597,525. That is the budget that the school board agreed on, and it is the budget that the Budget Committee at their meeting last week said that they would go with for this hearing. That can change at the end of this meeting to something other than $21,597,525. The default budget, which is also listed in your sheet, is set by the school board, and they met and they set that default budget as $21,700,092. Now, what happens when we vote on a budget, if the budget from the Budget Committee or the budget amended at the deliberative session fails, then the default budget kicks in, and that becomes what the actual number is. And it's defined in law as being the prior year's budget less one-time expenditures plus some contractual obligations that can be added to it. And the school board has determined that that number would be $21,700,092. Now, the preliminary statements regarding the process. There are no salary increases for any employees. There's a reduction of 15.4 full-time employees, professional staff, 5 paraprofessional staff, 1 administrator position. It changes so that there will be multi-age grade levels at the Danbury Elementary School, which means that this particular plan would keep the Danbury Elementary School open. It would include larger class sizes. Bear in mind that many of our class sizes are extremely small. The Newfound Memorial Middle School reconfiguration would add grade 5 to the current configuration of grade 6, 7, and 8. The middle school has a surplus capacity at this point in time, and grade 5 can easily fit there, and the SAU office has assured us that they feel that that can be segregated, where the 5th graders are segregated from the older children, and that a quality education can still be provided with them being in a blended middle school setting. There are significant adjustments to health care for support staff. There can be no changes to the health care for the contractual teachers and people covered by the teacher's contract. However, the support staff were open to have changes made. The change in plans offered, adding a deductible and increasing office visit copays. A change in benefits offered by the district to cover a single plan and up to 1/2 of the 2-person plan. That means if you're the employee, they pay the full cost for one employee, but if you have a spouse or a child, they would only pay 1/2 of the additional amount for a 2-person plan. And a continuation of premium cost sharing. The bottom line is that the reduction in the estimated amount to be raised by local taxes of $1,758,498. The default represents a reduction of $2,198,746 from last year's adopted operating budget. Now, those are two different numbers, and you might say, why are there two different numbers? You have to realize that what is raised by local taxes is after other revenues come in, federal, state, and so on. So there's always two important numbers, but the reduction of $1.758 million from what directly gets raised at the local level is very significant. This is the budget overview by section, and okay, they're not in here, so I'll have to do what you do and keep referring back and forth. Starts out with the 1100 series.
Actually, Fran, on page 17 is a summary. On page 17 is a summary right before that.
Dr. Ross is saying that there is a summary on page 17 that gives all of the classes, and while page 17 does not list what, for example, 1100 is, if you look on page 16, you'll see that 1100 is regular education. 1200 is special services, 1300 tuition to vocational technical high school, and so on down the list. So you can refer back to page 16 to what the actual title is of each particular series. The 1100 series, which is regular instruction, includes the proposed staff reductions of the 14.8 full-time teachers, the multi-age classrooms at Danbury, and the restructuring of adding the 5th grade back to the middle school. There is no salary increases for any employees. The healthcare premium decrease of 0.1% for employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement. And that wasn't due to an opening of a contract. It was just because when the numbers of the cost of the health plan came out, it ended up being a small reduction. The healthcare restructure for remaining support staff, but the change of the plan offered equals $100,000. Overall series decrease of 14.6%, which is $1,349,075. Now bear in mind, that's only in this one particular regular instruction line where we talk about the $100,000 savings. There may be other lines that will also be savings, but they're not in the 1100 series.
The total healthcare savings is $700,000 throughout.
Total healthcare savings is $700,000 throughout all of the various lines. So that gives you an idea. I have to tell you that one of the big cost drivers of the increases over the years has been the ever-increasing cost of healthcare. The next series is the 1200 series, which you would find on page 21. This is special education instruction. Again, no salary increases for any employees. the healthcare 0.1% decrease for collective bargaining agreement employees, and the healthcare restructure for support staff, saving $450,000 in the 1,200 line. Overall series decrease of 11.9% for a total of $540,674. The next category is 1,300 series, career and technical education, which is on page 23. This series supports instructional activities for students who participate in the Plymouth Career and Technical Education Center. There were no significant programming or budgeting changes in that area. The next area was the 1,400 series, which is other instructional programs, which includes athletics, driver's education, and extended day project promise. Overall series decrease of 2.3%, $15,407 in health insurance. The next category, 2,100 student support services, which is on page 25 of your handout. This series funds student support programs, which includes guidance, nurses, and specialized services of school psychologists, speech, language, and vision specialists, and associated materials and equipment. Many of these services are required to fill IEPs, which are individualized education plans for students receiving special education services as mandated by federal and state regulations. The reduction in this of staff includes 0.6 guidance counselor, a healthcare premium decrease of that 0.1% for contractual employees, healthcare restructure for support staff with that change of the plan offered, an overall series decrease of 4.7% for a total of $97,247. The next series is the 2,200 series, which is the support services instructional staff. That would be on page 29. This series provides for the professional development of our staff to enhance their curriculum, instruction, and assessment expertise to meet ever-changing needs of diverse learners and to prepare them for success throughout K through 12 education and beyond. Also included are district library media centers and information technology departments responsible for providing all information and communication technologies and printing. There is an increase to address replacement of significantly aged equipment that's older than 8 years, an increase in dues and fees, which is line 810 of the more detailed breakdown that you have, which is offset by a decrease in telephone services cost elsewhere in the budget. Healthcare premium decrease of that 0.1% again for the collective bargaining agreement. Healthcare restructure for support staff. An overall series increase of 8.1%, which is $67,386. That was an increase. The 2,300 is district administration. That is on page 31. This is the cost that identifies with those associated with the school board, the budget committee, and the SAU office, district administrators and clerks. It includes such items as legal expenses, auditing fees, and other operational costs. There's again that healthcare premium decrease of the 0.1% for SAU employees, an overall series decrease of 6.4%, which equals $54,083. The 2,600 operation and maintenance of plant services line. 2,400. Did I skip some? Okay.
Page 33.
School administration, page 33. This series includes the administrative office of the individual school buildings, including the principals and the administrative assistants. How could we forget the principals, right? This includes a reduction in staff of the assistant principal in Newfound Regional High School, including all of the additional costs of the health insurance and retirement and so on. A healthcare premium decrease of that 0.1% for collective bargaining. Healthcare restructure for the support staff, which comes to about $60,000. An overall series decrease of 8.2%, which means $100,958. Next, on page 35, is the 2600 series that I tried to get to more quickly a minute ago. This series funds infrastructure and maintenance of all physical plants in the district. Again, there's the restructure of the support staff. In this particular line item is $60,000. An increase in capital projects to address roofing issues at the Bristol Elementary School. A decrease in security systems, which was projected to be completed in fiscal year 12. An overall series decrease of 5.3%, which comes to $82,573. 2700, student transportation. That's a big number. We are entering year 3 of a 5-year agreement with an increase of 2.25%. The diesel fuel was budgeted at $3.50 a gallon. There is a reduction in special education transportation due to a reduction in out-of-district placements. The overall series decrease of 2.1%, or $31,467. All right, 2,900 is listed under 2,700. Other, unemployment costs projected to rise with reduction in staff and a series increase of 45.2% of $42,000. The next one is 3,100, food services. Healthcare restructure for the support staff of $30,000. Hours reduced where feasible. An overall series reduction of 14.3% for $96,195. The 4,000 series is construction services, which are mandated life safety code improvements. We are in talks with the fire chief in New Hampton on some areas of concern he has under newer codes. So there has a $100,000 figure in there. We're hoping it potentially will not reach that number, but that's the number that was plugged in. The 5,100 line is a debt service, reduced interest expense due to the note maturity on the Honeywell project, which is $83,416.
And I think we missed a line that says that we took off $102,000 contingency for retirement. It didn't get printed.
What page?
5,200. What is it? I apologize that in the 5,200 series, last year, we have a fund transfer reduction. Last year, we budgeted $102,000 because of mandated state retirement increases, and there's a 2-year retirement amount, so that won't change next year, and I apologize it didn't print on the bottom of your page.
So that completes the presentation by series line, giving you an idea of what areas were reduced or increased, coming up to that final total of the $21,597 figure that the school board passed and that the budget committee discussed last week and accepted to move into for this public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the public? And again, please use the microphones and identify your name and what community you are from. And I'm also, if there's a lot of people that want to speak, I will limit time to 3 minutes.
Mike McKinney, Bristol. a lot of work obviously has been done over the last several months to get to a figure certainly that looks better than the figure looked a little while back. I guess there's one thing that I would wonder if, and perhaps Mr. Rossner is the one who could answer this, at least some of it, if not all of it, but I guess what I see in terms of support staff, about $600,000 or so in reduced cost comes from the restructuring of benefits for support staff. And that group also is not receiving a pay increase. I'm curious as to how many employees fall into that category. And I guess I'm curious about that because that 600 or so thousand or 600,000 plus in reduced costs falls to that group of people in some fashion. So I'm just curious, how hard are we hitting those people? How many of them are there and how hard are we hitting them?
I just want to be clear that I'm hearing your question right and giving you the information you're looking for. I would use the number 700,000 as being the changing cost for the affected support staff. And the reason I make that characterization is because there's an elimination of some positions altogether.
Right.
And the costs associated with those positions being eliminated are not included in that $700,000 number. The $700,000 number is the difference in cost between the number of support staff budgeted if they were on the existing plan versus the proposed plan.
Right.
So we're clear about that. We're talking about approximately 130 to 150 employees. I don't know if you have the exact number in front of me, but what we're talking about, of those employees, they're not all full-time, they don't all take health care. So it's approximately 100 health care contracts that are being changed in structure to achieve that $700,000 changing cost. And I do have additional information which I can share with you if people want to hear it now, or I can share it with you afterwards, showing what, if people were to maintain the current plan, for example, if a person has a family plan now and pays this much out of their pot, because of the premium sharing arrangement, they pay this much for that plan now. Under the new structure, based on their income, what would they pay then?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it ranges from the existing 95% paid by the district down to 44% paid by the district, 56% by the employee. And there's all sorts of iterations that I can share with you if you'd like to see them. In the end, this is one of the examples that people have been talking about, is you could have employees working primarily for their health care.
Right.
So,
in other words, bottom line dollars to them would
Bottom
pretty
line,
much mean they're paying for health. They're getting health care for the work that they're doing.
Correct.
Right. And particularly
Health care for them and their family.
Right, and that's particularly the ones that are hit the hardest are those who have family coverage, if I understand it, because the folks that are single coverage,
they still get the 92, 95, 88% ratio. Right. The current structure is, and the premium sharing structure that was mentioned in the presentation that is existing and proposed to move forward, is that for employees earning between $0 and $15,000, the district pays 95% of the premium. The employee pays 5%. For employees making between $15,000 and $30,000 a year, the district pays 92%, the employee pays 8%. For employees making over $30,000, the district pays 88%, the employee pays 12%. So that's the premium sharing structure that doesn't change. It's just the nature of the benefit changes, including the addition of a deductible to the plan.
And do we know approximately how many of those 100 or so that are in a covered status, support staff that do have the health coverage?
There are 100 healthcare contracts for the support staff.
Do we know what portion of those, for instance, are more than just the employee, but are plus one, full family, that type thing? Half of them?
I have that information available to me. It's not committed to memory. But I can pose it for you.
I understand.
My memory says it's about, out of the 100 healthcare contracts, there's approximately 50 or 60 family, 10 or 12 single, and the balance being two-person. That's from memory. Please don't hold me to those numbers.
I guess my bottom line comment on that is that we're taking a big piece of this cost reduction on the backs of a group of people, a relatively small group of people that are, on average, the lowest paid people in the district.
I will save comments until after everybody has expressed their questions or their comments, and give you a little background of how the Budget Committee came to work up what numbers that they are bringing forward tonight and what numbers they might change to later this evening. Mr. Westfall.
Todd Westfall, Alexandria. Last year at the deliberative session, I brought forward some information regarding comparing our district to a couple other districts, and as a result of that, the data task force, district data task force, did quite a bit of research comparing many districts, and I think that it was a very important thing for the district to do, to start to look at answering the question, which I've posed every year for many years now, which is why can't our district operate with the same level of funding as some of these other districts and provide an adequate education for that lower price. The results were presented to the public in 2 different sessions, and it didn't seem to make headlines anywhere. Here's a couple of things that did make the headlines. Teachers' positions being cut, benefits being cut. Those are the things that are making the headlines. And I think it's very telling that this data is out there, and what you didn't see in the headlines, here's a couple things. Based on that data, our student to employee ratio, we spend millions of dollars more based on this data. We look at the data that was compiled, and we can see that we spend millions more than comparable districts when you boil it down to per student costs. That should have made headlines. That's big news. We're spending more money. We're not getting results. We saw that there are other districts that, 2 other districts that spend as much or about the same amount. I didn't believe they should be included in the study, but they were. Actually turns out to be a good thing. We looked at Bow and Guilford, who both have higher funding for their students, but we don't compare when it comes to the performance. They scored either in the top or second position for academic results on almost everything. We don't even come close. So it showed us that this data showed that for the money that we're spending, we're not getting the results. So we should be average. The taxpayers are supposed to fund an adequate education, just like these other districts are. If we had the average number of full-time employees based, again, on the data collected by the district task force, we should have between 250 and 260 employees. We're 50 to 60 employees off. In other words, we have 50 to 60 extra employees. Hearing that we're going to cut a few positions here and there, that makes headlines, but the fact that we're carrying 50 to 60 extra positions is not headline news. I don't understand that. We can't afford to continue to fund at this level. The administration has targeted teachers in this round of cuts. I don't think it's equitable. Teachers are taking the direct hits. This is across the board. You look at the funding levels and it's across the board. I think what it did was it served to get all these people out here, upset. They hear their kids are going to have to move to, the middle school. We're going to have to close schools. Teachers are going to lose their jobs. There's plenty of other places to look, but it should be equitable. The cuts should be across the board. This is just a way to get the public incited, I believe. I think that, if we've heard the same excuses every year regarding this, and it's time that we stop listening to the excuses. And what I'd like to do is to have you guys let the public weigh in. You've decided, well, or the administration decided, well, we won't close Danbury, but we'll do this, we'll cut, we'll move kids into the middle school. Don't make that choice. Let the public make that choice. You guys should cut it to the base funding, and let them come into the deliberative session and make their arguments that if they want to put back in the Danbury school, and they want to put, because I've heard people argue each way, and I don't necessarily support those positions that you should cut the school, and I know many of you don't, or to move the kids to the 5th grade, from the 5th grade to the middle school. But let the public decide that. Don't make that decision for them. They can come into the deliberative session and add that money back in. The people who will really suffer if you're sticking with this higher budget are the people on Social Security, fixed incomes, who are going to have to come in here, and they're going to have to try to defend against increases to the budget that are unnecessary. So don't make those people come out and have to do that. I hope that you stick with your lower budget and allow people to come in. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the Budget Committee for all your hard work.
Yes, sir.
William Corbeil, Alexandria. My question is back to the support staff health insurance. Is that carved in stone that is going to happen? That $700,000 savings, that can't be changed, or whatever your number you came up with?
That is carved in stone as far as the school board's recommendation. So far, it's carved in stone as far as the Budget Committee's recommendation. We could pass a budget going through the deliberative session and then the vote, and the school board and SAU later can decide that they're going to figure out a way to make $700,000 reductions in other areas and reinstate that. They always have that option, that once the final number is decided on, that they can rearrange the chairs, or if they get a grant money or something, there's always ways that they can. So nothing is ever final.
Okay.
There is always a possibility of change, but at this point in time, that is the game plan.
All right, thank you. I'd just also like to bring up another thing here. My wife works here at the school, and we are on the support staff health insurance, which is not the same as the health insurance that the teachers have, if I'm correct. Am I wrong on that? It's a totally different plan. Teachers have a totally different plan.
Currently, it's the same plan.
Well, currently, but under this proposal, it would not be the same.
It's currently the same plan? I wasn't aware of that, okay. Well, once you go to your cut, I am now looking at for my family and I, $7,800 a year that we have to pay for a premium. It puts us at just under $800 a month, because it's on a 10-month, the school's only open 10 months, that my wife and I don't have, just so you know that. It's not like she makes a whole lot of money here, working in the kitchen. And I understand times are tough. Should this go through, how much of my property tax is going to go down in Alexandria?
We do have that number. I don't have that sheet with me. Mr. Rossner, do you? Alexandria?
Am I going to save close to $800 a month?
It varies depending on what town you're from. You're not going to save $800 a month. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, wonderful. Another question I have is...
It's on page 14 of your handout? Nope. The estimated tax impact of the whole budget. Depending on what town you live in, for example, in Hebron, it's a very small number. In Danbury, it was a much higher number. I think for a $100,000 assessed home with a $2 million cut in spending was going to be in the neighborhood of $240, $250, if I remember. If I'm saying for Danbury, I think it was about that.
Okay.
But again, it depends on your house assessment. A
Okay.
lot of houses are much more than a $100,000 assessment. Some people could get $400 or $500 a year, some people only a couple $100 a year.
One other
I
question.
think Mr. Rosner has the exact answer now.
So the number I'm going to give you is based on the fall 2010 assessments in terms of ADM, which is the percentage of the students that come from each town, and the valuation of the town of Alexandria that you're asking about. If the valuation changed in fall 2011, I can't adjust for that right now. But in Alexandria, the difference of $2 million should be raised locally for the entire budget, which is what we're approximately what we're talking about. For every $100,000 of home valuation, and I don't know how much home is valued at, it's $164. So the effect of a $2 million change in the budget, on the amount to be raised locally, in Alexandria, $164 and change per $100,000 of home valuation.
Yeah, for the year.
I can read off all 7 towns if you'd like.
Bridgewater, $50.
Bridgewater, $50.81.
Bristol, $118.
Bristol, $118.12.
Danbury, $160.16.
Danbury, $160.16.
Groton, $129.98.
Groton, $129.98.
Hebron, $30.13.
Hebron, $30.13.
New Hampton, $129.78.
And New Hampton, $129.78.
It lowers me about $200 a year. Wonderful.
On a $100,000 home. If you have a $200,000 home, you have to double it.
I don't have a $200,000 home, ma'am. Wonderful. Well, I guess one other question is, does the school have a policy where if a teacher or support staff doesn't take the insurance, that they get comped from the school for not taking the insurance? And if so, how much is that amount?
Yes, $1,500.
So if somebody doesn't take the insurance, they get paid $1,500 from the school.
An employee who's eligible.
An employee who's eligible. How many people do that now?
I don't have that information available. It's
And that's
public.
only in the bargaining unit.
No, it's
No, it's all employees.
That's all employees, not just the bargaining unit, that's all employees.
All employees.
It's about 75.
About 75 employees total, Mr. Rossner's saying.
75 employees take the $1,500 a year? All right. Well, I hope the school board, the school budget